freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your round 3 recap for this week's Open Championship. Joining me to break it all down, it's Greg DuCharme. Hello, Greg.
Rick, great to be here. Yeah. Great tournament we have going on. Boy, I would not want to be a weatherman in Scotland or in England. Is that the hardest job in the world?
Boy, yeah. I mean, I think about if, okay, being a weatherman in the UK versus being the weatherman in like Southern California. Like I could be the weatherman in Southern California
right now without studying.
Right. I could just throw me on TV right now. I'll give you the 5-day.
Right. You know what it is. Yeah. You could pre-tape it.
Yeah, I could tape for the year and go on vacation.
Yep. All right, let's do what you got to do. One segment for June. It's going to be gloomy out. Okay.
Gloom.
Not in Scotland. It's tough. So I think that played a really big role in this day today. You got a little bit of rain. You got a little bit of wind. I mean, a little bit. But those things were all week. It was looking to be significantly worse today than it was. And it was very calm weather. And some guys were able to take advantage of it. It's just question is, were they the right ones to make this a really interesting final round Sunday? A lot of golf left to play. Important golf. But it doesn't look like the right guys made the run to make it tight.
I hate to complain. I hate to complain on the eve of the final round of our last major championship of the year. And I wish nothing but the best for Brian Harman in his life and his career. But I can't have a guy, anybody for that matter, with a 5-shot lead going into the final round when in second is Cam Young, in third is Jon Rahm, and in fourth is Viktor Hovland.
Yeah, it's a great board, and they're playing really well, or did today at least. Right, Hovland and Rahm, the move they made today was spectacular. But I don't know if it puts them in the best position to win tomorrow. Now it could. You're right, if you chop the top of this leaderboard off, now it really could. But I know we're going to get to what the outlook is. And this is not over, but it feels like it's over.
Well, it feels like it's over because the guy who entered Saturday with a 5-shot lead exited Saturday with a 5-shot lead. His name is Brian Harman, a Sunday 69 in which Greg, tell you what, started a little slow. Bogey on 1, bogey on 4, 2 over through 4 holes. And remember, Jon Rahm, who we'll get to, finished the round of the week and the round ever played at the Open at Royal Liverpool, like as Brian Harman was walking to the first tee, which is awesome. And yeah, great for the mental anguish for him. You know, Harman through 4 holes was hovering that thumb over the eject button, just hovering it. Did not press it, however.
No, in fact, did just the opposite, because not only does he recover the 2 bogeys that he made, gets out of the front 9, even par, but he extends it on the back 9 with some really good shots, and he made a really nice putt at 13 as well. But, you know, there's a couple things. One, I thought the hitting the 5th and 2 was really big to kind of settle the nerves, put a circle on the card, get back to 9, kind of take control of this thing, where all of a sudden you're in a position where you hit one great shot like you did on number 9, you know, one great shot, an easy birdie, and now you're sailing again. And even if he was at 10 under, he would be feeling like he did his job today. But to add the 2 on the back really solidifies this. And I think it changes the game plan for tomorrow, which in a strange way is exactly the game plan that Brian Harman plays with, right? He's kind of like an old school guy in a lot of ways, where he's accurate off the tee and he drives it really straight. that little baby draw off the tee. I mean, hitting a draw with a driver is an old school thing for the most part. He does that when he finds fairway. His short game and wedge play is really solid, and his putting is rock solid. That 4 to 8 foot range. He didn't miss a single putt inside of 10 feet today. That's not unlike Brian Harman. So these kind of things play right into his hands. And I guess the reason I call it old school is they used to say all the time, you got to be really good. And they still do to some degree. It's just not necessarily what you see at the highest level, but you got to be really good with 5 clubs, the driver, your wedges, and your putter. Driver, the 3 wedges, and your putter. And if you're really good with those clubs, you're going to shoot really good scores. And that's what Brian Harman does. And that is the perfect way to play the final round with a lead in any tournament.
Yeah, I think that, a lot of the conversation coming into the week was about off the tee play and how that was going to take hold of Royal Liverpool. And I think at least the way that this board is shaping up through 54, I think it's kind of lives in the extremes, which I think makes sense. Brian Harman, short, very accurate. Then you've got Cam Young, Jon Rahm, Viktor Hovland, who are like elite bombers of the golf ball. Yep. And it's really those middle guys where they don't hit it straight enough, or they don't hit it long enough, or they're hitting it into those ranges where all that trouble lurks, that are in kind of the worst spot. Either you have to take it out of play somehow. You
got to go over it or short of it.
Short of it. And that is like what the top of this board looks like.
And, so Brian Harman is accurate enough and he did this, I believe it was on 16 today, where, driver brings the bunkers right into play, but not when you thread the needle and you hit it right down the middle. So he's shown the ability to do that. But when you look at a Young, a Rahm, and a Hovland, those guys have the club head speed where they can still decide to go over or shy of the bunkers. But the big advantage is if they lay up, they have club head speed that allows them to, still have from like 190. 190 is a long shot for most people, but it's a short to middle iron for these guys. So, there's still, and that's what Tiger did. He used his club head speed advantage with the second shot instead of with the first shot. So it gives you more options when you have that club head speed. You can still club down when you need to. Jon Rahm hit a couple of tee shots today right over everything that set him up for some really easy approach shots, which was a different strategy than he employed earlier in the week. So, yeah, it is a nice mix, Rick. I think you make a good point.
If it wasn't already, the storyline now, 54 holes in the books, is it's Brian Harman to me, right? He is either going to get a coronation on Sunday, in which he will get a claret jug and hold, give it a little smooch on the 18th green there, or he will have one of the biggest I don't want to say meltdowns. Even if someone chases him down, it'll just be one of the biggest leads ever coughed up in the final round of a major championship. So however this ends up shaking out, Brian Harman's the story for me.
He is the story. And you start to just do a little bit of math here, right? Even par would require Cam Young, no one else. It would require Cam Young to shoot 500, catch him 600 to beat him. He shot 5 under today. So is he going to shoot 10 or 11 under on the weekend of a major championship? Much more wind in the forecast for tomorrow. Again, take the forecast for what it's worth. But this was expected to be the windiest day headed into the week. So even par really rules out a lot of guys. You think about it. So Cam Young, is he going to go 10 or 11 under on the weekend to catch or pass Brian Harman? Jon Rahm just shot 63. So is he going to go shoot another round like that on Sunday? It's possible. It's Jon Rahm, one of the best players in the world, but it's very unlikely. Viktor Hovland did all of his work today, right? He shoots 5 under today. Is this going to be a 10 or 11 under par weekend for Viktor Hovland? Possible, but unlikely. And then when you start to go down into the lower, like you look at the 4 unders, and it's Alex Fitzpatrick, not Matt, Alex Fitzpatrick, and Shubhankar Sharma. And I don't see those guys winning the Open, period. So you really, an even par round from Brian Harman thins out this field to just a couple of guys who can make a run and have a chance. And it's unlikely, it'd be an all-time round.
Yeah. So to recap and make sure I understand, if Brian Harman shoots even par, someone would have to have a pretty historic round to get to him. If he shoots 1 under, it's over.
Yeah, I think so.
So the path to someone not named Brian Harman winning is for Brian Harman to shoot something over par.
Yes.
How likely do you think that is? I mean, unless the scoring average is over par, right? I mean, how often does Brian Harman lose shots to the field, and what's the path? He knows. Hey, keep it out of the bunkers, man. Keep it out of the bunkers.
Yeah. So you got bunkers and OB you got to avoid. The OB, like he did on 18 today, he can avoid. I guess the path is, it's avoid the bunkers, avoid the OB, and try not to, hope you don't get unlucky bad lies in the rough where you got to pitch out sideways, but, which hasn't happened a whole lot this week. Even when guys hit it in the fescue, they've had a pretty good chance of getting it around the green. And that's ultimately what Brian Harman has to do, is get the ball around the green in 2. And he's really good from there. But it is possible to, without anything egregious happening, it's possible for him to shoot over par. I especially if it's windy, right? You miss, you get a couple of things go sideways early like they did today, but you have somebody making a run and getting really close. Pressure really starts to mount up. And then you start putting pressure on the putter, which is a strength of his. And I don't feel like he's going to start coughing up 6-footers. Where there are other players, many other players on tour, where when they're in that, inside of 10 feet, you don't feel fully confident. Some of them are stars. Brian Harman, I feel really, really solid about him anywhere inside of 10 feet. And that's going to be the biggest challenge. That's where you see some nerves kind of really creep in, where he misses some of those short ones and gives a few away.
If he does it, it'll be his 3rd PGA Tour win. Obviously his first major. You want to play the game where you tell me what his other 2 wins are?
The John Deere Classic.
Yep. Do you remember what year by chance?
Why do I think 2000? Is it 16?
Close. 14.
14.
He beat his about to be Ryder Cup captain, Zach Johnson, by a shot.
14 was, I'm not kidding, it was in my mind, and I said, no, Spieth did it that year, but Spieth was 13. Yeah. So I stepped all over my toes there.
All right, that's one.
The other was, why do I want to say the Sony Open?
See, this one's actually, I think, a lot more difficult than it should be, because the event was played at a course that it's not normally played at.
Oh, I remember. The Wells Fargo at Eagle Point.
Eagle Point, because that was the year 17 where they used Quail Hollow for the PGA Tour.
Yeah, that was a good hint. I knew that.
So that one always, when I think of Wells Fargo, I start rattling off the names in my brain of guys who won at Quail Hollow.
Right.
And I always forget Brian Harman because he didn't win there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know who in the trivia game? Do you know who the other player who won the Wells Fargo at Quail Hollow?
Yes, it was TPC Potomac Max Homa.
Yep, that's right. Nice.
Boom. How about that? All right. Brian Harman, 5 shots clear heading into the final round of the 2023 Open Championship. The chase pack filled. 5 back is Cam Young, 6 back Jon Rahm, 7 back Viktor Hovland, and a group of others. Let's go to Cam Young here. 5 under 66. I have been so impressed with this guy. I thought, coming into the week that he was trending in the right direction. It is, if it ended right now, it would be another one of his infamous runner-up finishes, Greg, at another different golf course, right? We've talked about the diversity of golf courses that he has had these runner-up finishes on. And this could have been even lower, man. He was great today.
Yeah, he missed a couple of shorter putts, right? 17, he missed one he could have had. I believe 11 as well, and 7. So those 3 holes, he had opportunities to take it really low. But all in all, it was a really impressive round out of him. So that's why you see him lose some strokes putting. But he did at the same time make some really nice putts as well. And I like this thing that they have on the Open website where they tell you where he made the ranges that he made his putts from. So he made a couple from that 10 to 20 foot range. He made 2 of those, and he made one that was, I believe, this was his longest putt of the day, 30 feet 10 inches. So he still got a couple of bonuses despite the short misses. But really, this is a story of ball striking for him today, right? He's 9th off the tee, leads the field today in strokes gained approach, and is the guy that makes this move that was kind of in the chase pack, right? Coming out of the peloton, he is the biggest mover of the guys that were under par heading into the day. So really good stuff from Cam Young, and he's turning into like an Open Championship guy, right? These are St. Andrews is one. When I think about the course comps, like Open Championship history, I almost put St. Andrews aside. Louis Oosthuizen's a great example. You think he's got a great Open Championship resume, but really it's a great St. Andrews resume. Mm-hmm. And so for Cam Young to do this here, it kind of changes the mantra. It's almost like he's proving to be a really strong links player that's a little more well-rounded than just St. Andrews, which fits his game perfectly.
The podiums that he has posted on the PGA Tour, the Old Course, Riviera, Austin Country Club, Detroit Golf Club, Southern Hills, TPC Potomac, Country Club of Jackson, Harbor Town, Albany, if you want to go to the Hero World Challenge. I mean, that's a little bit of everything.
Yeah. And, even TPC Potomac was in the rain. You got a little weather here coming out. He's just really well-rounded. And it's really impressive. Now, there has been, since the match play, a little bit of a fall off, right? I mean, that was the first tournament where Paul Tesori gets on the bag with him. And he makes 9 threes on his very first 9 with Paul Tesori on the bag. And it looks like we've found another world beater. And things really slowed down since then. But he played some really good golf at the John Deere Classic, which seemed to, even though it's the John Deere Classic and, you would have liked a better Sunday out of him and you'd think that he should be able to win that event. I think that was a really big confidence builder for him. And it's really nice to see him carry that form right in here to a major championship where he's beating everybody in the field except for one guy.
So hard to win these things. The guy who made the biggest move is one of the biggest names. His name is Jon Rahm, and he went out early, Greg, and fired. Is that a typo? No, 63, 8 under 63. There had never been a 64 shot at Royal Liverpool in the Open Championship. So Rahm said, I'll do you one better. I'll come in 30 and shoot a 63 to move up 36 spots. Now solo third. Right there in position. And, I thought at the time that this was a sign that a lot of guys were going to be moving on the leaderboard today. And so because of the weather, because of the conditions, but we started to get a little rain
which changed the conditions a little bit. And guys started kind of petering out. But Jon Rahm didn't. And what he did on this back nine, that was so difficult yesterday. I mean, how many rounds were just completely derailed with difficult back nines yesterday? And he goes out there and shoots 30. It was incredibly impressive. Got a little momentum going with a nice birdie at the par 5 fifth, where he made a nice putt from 10 feet, which kind of set the stage, because that's what he did the rest of the way. He made everything. The putts that he holed were absolutely phenomenal. He made 4 putts from 10 to 20 feet, which was just really good. And he made 4 putts outside of 20 feet, between 20 and 30 feet. So that's kind of how you get this round going. Now, he keeps getting off to these slow starts, and it's tough. And I thought he played very conservative in round 1. And was kind of waiting for this to happen, where the putts start to fall. I wonder if he just waited a little bit too long. And I also wonder if that strategy works again tomorrow. Do you employ the same strategy? He hit it to 20, 25 feet a lot. It wasn't like he was uber aggressive. He did hit driver a few more times today. But it wasn't like he was super aggressive attacking all the flag sticks. He just converted all the opportunities, which is obviously great to see. But do you lean on that again tomorrow? I don't know what he'll do.
This round, he gained 7.43, I believe was the final number, strokes to the field, which will end up being, yes, indeed, the best single round of Jon Rahm's major championship career. Just edges out the 7.39 that he gained in round 1 of the Masters. Obviously, in 2023, he would obviously go on to win that Masters. So it's, all these guys are going to look up and say, I had these ceiling weeks, ceiling rounds, chances, and I never sniffed Brian Harman.
Yeah, it's crazy. But you look, what Brian Harman did in the Friday round, I mean, those 2 rounds of 67, 65 for him in the 2 openers, but he holed everything that he looked at. And in round 1, he was really steady and really consistent and put himself in the lead. So, you jump off to that start, then the game changes. Now, for Jon Rahm, the pressure is off today. You want to go play well, but all the pressure is internal. And all of a sudden, you see what you can do. See how many birdies you can make. And he made a ton. But I do have a feeling tomorrow is going to feel a little bit different. It's really hard. You look through this round, and it's hard to replicate. It's not like he's driving it so well. He's giving himself little pitch shots. The golf course doesn't allow for that, right? It doesn't allow for you to just take advantage of the par 5s and eat those alive. And all of a sudden you can shoot 7 under. This is a par 71. That's a real par 71. And I think that makes it challenging to replicate a round like this. There's trouble around the greens that you have to avoid. You got to play a true major championship type round, tee to green. And he did that today and just happened to make a lot of the putts. So it's great. Just feels hard to do again.
Yeah. The other big name kind of lurking just in that second tier is Viktor Hovland. He shot the best round of his week. It was a Saturday 66. 1 bogey on the card. That was on the second, but he goes out in 33, in 33, added up, like I said, 66. This is now becoming a trend here, Greg. We've got Viktor Hovland in the top 5 or top 10 late at a major championship. He's got, he finished 19th at the U.S. Open, but before that it was T2 at the PGA Championship, T7 at the Masters, T4 at this event last year in which he was in the final group. We've been talking about this a bit, but he's solving majors.
Yeah, they don't seem to, they're not a different event for him now. I mean, in fact, this year they've been the better events for him. Right. Like, he's getting ready for the majors, which is great to see. But he's playing a lot smarter, which is an interesting thing. But what Jon Rahm did and what Viktor Hovland did today were not dissimilar. Rahm made a few more putts than Viktor Hovland did, but Viktor gave himself 20-foot looks all day. He kept hitting it flag high 20 feet. I was so impressed with this round of ball striking. I know in the strokes gained category, he ends up 17th strokes gained approach the green, but I thought especially on the back nine, a lot of those approach shots he hit were really high quality. And this kind of golf course suits his game because it is so demanding off the tee. He's very good in that category, and is obviously a great iron player too. So it's really good stuff from Viktor. I'm hoping he can keep this up tomorrow and push and be there in case of a stumble.
Yeah, there are some interesting groups. We can talk about those as well, but it's going to be, let's see. Harman is going to go out with Cam Young. Rahm and Hovland will go out together, which is pretty sick. And then it'll be Rosner and Day and everybody else after that. But we'll continue this conversation. We'll hit the notables and give you a little prep for tomorrow's final round. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners.
Get breaking news.
Big news coming out of the NFL today.
Highlights and instant reactions.
The largest final round comeback in tour championship history. We're down to the final four.
I just want to take time to analyze greatness.
Talk winners and losers with a guy who's already a big winner.
CBS Sports HQ. It's all sports all day long.
And we're back. Let's hit a couple of notables here, Greg. Tommy Fleetwood was in that final pair, and between he and Brian Harman, there weren't a lot of fireworks. Brian eventually got it to 2 under. Fleetwood in at even par 71, which was a birdie on 2, a bogey on 10, and that was it. Not the moving day Tommy Ladd was looking for.
No, and when you have Brian Harman on the ropes, right? You've made up 3 shots on him in the first 4 holes. And that's the opportunity to really pounce. But he just couldn't get any momentum going because he couldn't get any putts to fall. The longest putt that he made all day was, not surprisingly, but at number 2. And it was 9 feet, 2 inches. He doesn't make one putt outside of 20 feet. And just like we talked about with Jon Rahm, you can't necessarily just go stuffing it in there all over this golf course. It's a major championship test. It's difficult. So in order to make that move, you got to get a couple putts to fall. And he didn't get anything to go. He didn't give any away. Didn't really miss any shorties. Maybe there was I think he missed a 7-foot look on the back 9, maybe on 11, which was a little frustrating. But ultimately, he hit the ball pretty nicely. He gave himself chances, although they weren't great chances, but he never made one to get the momentum going. And it always felt like it was an eye roll day, even though he hit the ball pretty nicely.
Gave himself a lot of chances. Just never. And the fans were dying to carry him across the finish line.
Right.
He never really gave them a chance to get, full throttle.
This 71 felt a lot different than yesterday's.
Yeah.
Right. Because today's the day to go take advantage, right? Take advantage of the light wind and easier conditions. And he wasn't able to do it. Again, I really think that just, one big moment early in that front 9 could really lit a spark, even if it's just making 4 at number 5, right? He makes birdie there. This starts to feel a whole lot different if you're 2 under through 5, and maybe that gives him a spark where he can really make a move. But he was never on the, as Paul McGinley says, he was never playing on the front foot today. He's kind of playing on his heels a little bit because he just couldn't get anything to go.
Yeah. The Rory McIlroy round started great. Remember, this morning we were watching what Jon Rahm is doing to this golf course, and you're saying this is the blueprint for somebody to go and shoot a 63, go and shoot a 64. And Rory makes 3 birdies in his first 5 holes, and we're having flashbacks to just moments before of what Jon Rahm did. And that was it. 3 birdies through his first 5, played the final 13 at 1 over. It was 12 pars and a bogey on 12. And just stalling out for the final 2/3 of this round doesn't give Rory any momentum. He's going to head into the final round T11 at 3 under par.
He very easily could have been 5 under through 5.
Yeah.
You know, those approach shots he was hitting, I think he missed from 11 feet on 2 and 9 feet on 4. Maybe that was the other way around. But very not must miss, not it's okay to miss those every once in a while, but they're very good looks, you know. And if he's 4 under through 5, think about the buzz around Rory at that time, which was still there because he was hitting beautiful iron shots, and he kind of wasn't able to replicate that. You know, he started hitting it to 40 feet a lot, and struggling a little bit more on that back 9. He did give himself more looks. I mean, he had a good look at 17. He had a couple of hands on the knees moments, but it stalled out after that. You're absolutely right. And there was nothing really to lean on. Still a hard fought, well played major championship round. It just looked like this was going to be different. He had that look. His swing he was so confident with it. You could tell. And it looked like, okay, this is my time to get something going here. And it just didn't materialize.
No, it never did. You know, looking at this board again, this feels like it's going to be kind of a Brian Harman coronation, and we can get to the odds board in a second. But is there anybody else here that you think we should talk about? I mean, Jordan Spieth didn't have much going. He shot an even par 71. I was a little bit surprised to see Minwoo go backwards, a 72. Fowler and Patrick Cantlay are going to improve their, Wikipedia results with a couple of 67s. I mean, is there anything here that we should dive a little bit deeper into?
Fowler and Cantlay are interesting. They played nice rounds today. But again, just absolutely no pressure. Cantlay hold some really nice putts. Fowler I think he made 4 birdies, no bogeys, and they were all inside of 10 feet. He hit it really nicely. Still didn't take advantage of any of the par 5s. But ultimately, the story on this board to me is rounds that got off to really good starts that sputtered out. And it looked like everybody was going to be making Jon Rahm-like moves, Cam Young-like moves, and they didn't. They teetered out. And now where these stories would be really interesting, if Cam Young was our leader at 7 under par, they lose a little bit of their interest and importance because of Brian Harman. And all credit to him, because that's what you're trying to do when you play in a golf tournament. So he's doing the right thing. But, it takes these guys out, and they had chances to get themselves into the mix. Not Cantlay and Fowler. They were too far back to start. But the players that were under par heading into the day had a chance to put a little bit of pressure on them, get themselves within striking distance, and many of them on the back 9 teetered out.
The one thing before we get to the board, the second best round of the day was from Alex Fitzpatrick, not Matt Fitzpatrick. So he flies up the board. He's now T9 thanks to a Saturday 65. I did not look, but is there some path to him getting status this week?
Well, he could win.
Well, besides winning, I mean, can he earn enough FedEx Cup points to get special temporary membership status?
I don't know how. I mean, he had the Zurich Classic.
Yeah.
What did he play? Did he play one other?
That might actually have been it.
I think that's it on the PGA Tour.
So he's got the T19, which is probably not a lot at the Zurich Classic.
No.
They split. I mean, that's nothing. But I mean, this is 600 FedEx Cup points.
Yep.
And I would have to look up what the guy.
So what, second gets you 350 or 400 or so? I know in a regular event it's 300 to second, which is pretty close. That's pretty close to special temporary status.
And wouldn't now does this work in the same? Would a top 10 get him into 3M next week?
Yes.
So maybe if even if you finish T9, you don't get all the points you need. You play next week.
Play well again.
Tell you what, there's a path there.
Yeah,
We've seen guys do this in 2 weeks.
Right. And then you get special temporary status gets you unlimited starts through the end of the calendar year.
Right.
So it's not like, well, okay, you get special temporary status for 2 events. You know, you'd get it for the whole fall series too, which gives you that pathway to earn your card full time next year. So yeah, it's a good story to watch. The top 10's the number for him though. He's got a top 10's big.
T9 right now.
Yeah, he's right there and confident. He looks like a tour pro. You know, he belongs. It's good, really good stuff.
Beat Big Bro by 2 shots today. They've actually both had.
And Big Bro played well.
Yeah, they both had nice days. They both moved up the board. And Joseph in the chat points out top 10 also gets him to next year's Open. Remember, he had to qualify for this one. So top 10.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
Big. See, now, okay. I'm going to try not to like rage about the coverage before the coverage even starts. But this is a 5-shot lead for Brian Harman, and in all likelihood, they can start engraving his name on the claret jug right now. So this is the stuff I need to see, right? I need to see Alex Fitzpatrick trying to finish inside the top 10 with the implications of that. I want to see that Viktor Hovland, Jon Rahm group is going to be a matchup that people are going to be interested in, right? Like there are so many other storylines, and I'm worried we are going to watch Brian Harman put a new lip in every 15 minutes and talk about everything about his hunting and whatever.
Right. Little stories on that. Look, you got to spice it up somehow. You could see how the story unfolds for the tournament. Cause like I said, it's not over. It's just it's highly likely that it's a Brian Harman coronation. But those things will make it much more interesting. Getting to root for Alex Fitzpatrick for something, that's a really cool thing. And we should know what those exact details are. So I hope they do the same thing because the storylines exist.
Let's look at the odds. Josh, thank you kindly. Brian Harman. That Brian Harman with 18 holes to go is minus 200 to win the Open Championship. That means you have got to put down 200 to win 100. A pretty significant favorite, especially for a guy with 2 PGA Tour titles. Jon Rahm has the next shortest odds, 7-1. Cam Young, 7.5. Big gap to Viktor Hovland and Tommy Fleetwood at 22 and 25. And there are only 3. So besides Brian Harman, there are only 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 golfers, 8 other golfers that are shorter than 250 to 1. Wow.
So who do you think on this board?
This is so
because I have an answer to this.
All right.
To me, there's one guy other than Harman that is playable here. And the reason I like this is it's a total and complete flyer. But I think that anytime you go with this guy, it's a total and complete flyer. It's Sepp Straka. I mean, Sepp is 7 back in tied 4th. And
hold on. He is 2 back of second.
He is 2 back of second.
This will require Brian Harman to exit stage left.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, I think for Cam Young to win, it pretty much has to be maybe not exit stage left, but it has to be a pretty bad round for anybody else. So if you're not going with Brian Harman, you're banking on a couple steps backwards from him. And I do think Sepp Straka could get to 10 under. So could Brian Harman shoot 73 or 74? Yeah, it's possible. But Sepp has just showed this ability to go crazy at kind of odd times. He has plenty of distance. His iron play is really strong. And since he made that adjustment after round 1 of the John Deere Classic, that putter can catch fire. So he's the guy on this board to me that can go play unconscious and shoot a crazy low score. He only shot 1 under today. A lot of the other guys on this board kind of played their hearts out today. Vic, maybe Victor would be the other guy I'd go for. But Rahm and Cam Young, it just feels like so unlikely that they do what Francesco Molinari did, kind of thing.
This is unbettable for right now. So I agree. I've got a 65 to 1 Cam Young ticket from before the event starts, which stinks. I've got my Viktor Hovland ticket hanging around, which stinks. I will say you can find markets without Brian Harman in which Cam Young and Jon Rahm are co-favorites at plus 275. Viktor Hovland's 550. Tommy Fleetwood's 8 to 1. That's kind of interesting. Or there are a lot of really cool like matchup. So there's the matchup implications of you get Rahm and Victor in the same matchup, but also the idea that like Brian Harman is so far ahead, what he has to do versus what Cam Young has to do. Like I would bet Cam Young in a matchup versus Brian Harman because Brian Harman like needs to do nothing.
Yes.
Cam Young needs to go do something.
Right. You fade Brian Harman in the matchups.
Let me see if I can find that matchup.
Because he can cruise. He's going to, when he gets on number 3, he might intentionally miss that fairway. Number 18, he might intentionally miss that fairway. He's going to lay back when bunkers are in play, leave himself long shots into greens because those are the things that he has to avoid in order to win. So I think that's a very, very wise idea.
Cam Young is minus 135 over Brian Harman. Sure. Snap that up.
Do you like that better than Brian Harman to win outright right now? Minus 200.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point.
Because if I'm going to go with that,
that's a pretty good point.
I might just go Brian Harman to win.
This stinks. This is just stinks. At least I've got some the Saturday night betting options are not great. Yeah, it's a good point. If I'm going to lay minus 135, should I just lay the minus 200 and bet?
Right. At the same time, if you have to go, you feel like you got to go crazy. You make the big number likelihood is a lot higher for Cam Young.
How about bogey free rounds? I don't know. I'm trying to find anything to like get in on for tomorrow.
I'm telling you, I think you throw a couple units on Seppi to win
Straka
outright.
55 to 1.
It's not bad.
He's 16 to 1 without Brian Harman.
Also not bad.
That's actually, he would be, quote, 2 off the lead.
He'd be 2 off the lead at 16 to 1. He's playing great. He's played really well on that back 9.
And also, like, what's sick about betting that is it doesn't even like even if you were, and I know Sepp Straka's won a couple times, but if you had questions of whether Sepp Straka could win or not, in his brain, it's not a win, right? Because he doesn't ever look up at the leaderboard and say, "Oh, I'm leading in this market," because it doesn't include Brian Harman.
No. Right. He's never, maybe in a way he is because he's trying to get second, but that pressure is totally different.
Yeah.
Right. I'm trying to it's like a money game now. Try to win as much money as I can.
That's funny. Yeah. All right. Well, I'll mix it up and see what's going on out there. Any final thoughts, Greg, before we get out of here? This time in 24 hours, we'll know. And we'll be a full 9 years since Rory McIlroy's won the Masters.
Yeah.
Or maybe.
And I'm pretty certain that's going to be true. So that's
very brave of you, Greg.
Yeah.
Very brave.
Yeah, I don't think Rory McIlroy is going to win tomorrow. Look, I hope it gets interesting tomorrow. We'll see what happens with the wind. But lastly, I just think Brian Harman's game is so perfect to play with a 5-shot lead. He's built for it. I think he's going to be really hard to catch. And I almost think the more difficult the conditions, the more difficult it is to catch him because he'll be able to make pars. I trust his ability to do that, whether it's 30-mile-an-hour wind or 5-mile-an-hour wind. So I think it's going to be tough on everybody out here. But I'm happy to see Brian Harman playing so well because, he closes this deal out. He is absolutely the deserving champion golfer of the year.
Champion golfer of the year. We'll know in 24 short hours. We'll be back to talk about it when that final putt drops, or probably like 15 minutes after, because we got stuff to do, and then we'll come here and talk all about it. Big thanks to producer Josh, does all the hard work behind the scenes. Greg DuCharme is available on Twitter at The Real GFD. You can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.